I don't have a single agent that sells less than 60 homes a year. I have a mom with 5 kids that sold 115 homes every year like clockwork. You can push people as hard as you want, but they've got to want it too.
100%.
And that's a hard pill to swallow when you really want someone to succeed. You want to focus on high intent leads. And so when I started figuring that out, things started changing pretty quickly. And I went from, basically selling 2, 3, 4 homes a month to selling 10, 11, 12, 13 homes per month. And I didn't work any harder.
Hi, I'm Tim, real estate agent, veteran, and author of The Freedom Agent. You're listening to the Freedom Agent podcast, where we help agents stop being the bottleneck in their business. Through conversations, stories, and real strategies, we'll show you how to scale smarter and finally take back your time. All right, Chris, so tell me a little bit what got you into real estate and what that time is that things actually just clicked in your business.
Yeah, great question. So graduated college in 2006, had a lawn mowing business to pay my way through school. One of my customers was, this one specific guy was probably one of the biggest pains in my ass because he was so particular about his lawn. And when I graduated, he convinced me to, join his real estate group at Keller Williams. And he's a great guy, super, super great and talented salesperson. And so I started there as a buyer's agent. And for anybody listening to this, some of you might not remember this, but in 2006 is the year Google came out with Google AdWords. So I was getting bombarded with internet leads that the team was giving me, doing open houses, working my sphere, all the things. And I was getting a lot of leads. He's giving me like 100, 200, 300 leads a day. It was a totally different ballgame. This was literally 20 years ago. And so, I'm a young kid. I have all the time in the world to like work like 18, 19, 20 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? And like, I found out really quickly that, you can only work so many leads and only so many of those leads are actually going to close and convert. And so I kind of realized real quickly there was a proverbial ceiling to my income working internet leads. And so I, had kind of this, I don't know if you want to call it breakthrough or whatever, but as I went down kind of the rabbit hole to learn more and more about marketing, what I learned is, you want to focus on high intent leads. And so when somebody's like Googling, like, what's my home worth or homes for sale in my market or whatever, that's not a high intent lead. They're in the very early due diligence stage. And so when you work a bunch of leads that have a really long conversion cycle, you're in essence creating a proverbial income ceiling because you can only manage so many. Whereas if you had a bunch of leads that would convert in 30, 60, 90 days, you spend less time on nurturing the pipeline, more time closing deals. And so when I started figuring that out, things started changing pretty quickly. And I went from, basically selling 2, 3, 4 homes a month to selling 10, 11, 12, 13 homes per month.
Nice.
And I didn't work any harder. It was simply just focusing on high intent lead sources. So I got to a point, when I think it was like one of my best months was I closed like 13 buyers in a single month. And I was running around with my hair on fire. And I said, I just can't do this anymore, And so I said to myself, this was 2010, 3-4 years later, I'm going to go build a team and I'm going to teach other people how to do this. And I'd like to tell you my first iteration of the team was a huge success, but I fell on my face, and that would be an understatement. I recruited 20 people in the summer of 2010. And in that year, we sold 98 homes, and 80 of them were sold by me and one other guy. The other 18 agents sold 18 homes. my CPA called me and he's like, "Hey, Chris, great news. You like owe very little in taxes." And I'm like, "How's that possible? I sold so many houses." And he's like, "Well, it looks like you've been underwriting a lot of expenses for the rest of the people on your team." And so it was it was one of those moments where you're basically eating humble pie. And I was like, dang. And so I was very, very frustrated, to say the least, after wasting basically an entire year recruiting, training. I was leading, weekly webinars and coaching, onboarding, and producing, right? I'm like doing all the things. And I'm a young person. I was working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Like I'd literally start my day at 6 a.m. Like literally I'd like start working at 6 a.m. And I'd go until midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like putting stuff in the MLS like midnight, 1, 2, like it was crazy. And so, anyways, I was really frustrated and I hired a sales coach because I thought, I was like, man, why can't I teach these people how to convert? And so I get this sales coach and I said, man, these agents suck. And so like, he started asking me a lot of questions and we started going down, kind of this path of discovery to figure out what the hell was I doing wrong. And he's like, Chris, look, the agents don't suck. You suck. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you don't know how to select the right people. Number one. Number two, you don't have a very good roadmap in place to like get people up to speed real quickly so they can start converting the leads you're giving them. And three, you don't have anything in place to make sure that they are actually taking what they learn from like webinars or classes and in essence inspecting what you expect.
Right.
And so, I had to, these are all the things I had to learn, right? And so, like, I started learning how important it is to listen to phone calls and how important it is to shadow the agents on listing appointments and buyer appointments and like baby them through that process.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you just teach the classes, webinar style, classroom style, whatever, it's not enough. Like, learning adaptation doesn't happen. Like, you know, people only remember 10% of what they heard. So it's like, you got to be out in the field with them. So, anyways, I started putting these dominoes in place, and the team grew really fast. I downsized the team from 20 people to 7, and the preceding year we sold 325 homes,
Nice.
and we netted net $1 million. And
That's
so
awesome.
it was a huge transformation, and I was like, man, I wonder if I can teach somebody else how to do this because I felt like that year I made $1 million. I was like, I thought I found the gold under the rainbow.
Yeah.
So I partnered with another team, showed them exactly what I did. And like it was like an equity partnership deal. I put in money, they put in money. And same that their team blew up. Went from like the solo agent doing 25 deals to in year 1, they sold just shy of 100, year 2, 250, then 300. And now she's got 20% market share in her town. Um,
Awesome. Wow.
so anyways, yeah, that's a little bit about my story as a team builder and agent.
Man, no, that's awesome. Sounds like you've learned some hard lessons. I think those are some of the best ones, right? I know I've been there with you. All right. So tell me then, we kind of talked about those agents that you were helping out, and you've kind of realized that on your own too. What would you tell me is the one thing most agents get wrong that you figured out?
Mm, man, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier. Um, you know, internet leads are it's not that they don't work. It's just it does create a proverbial ceiling. Um, what I learned is our industry, the real estate industry, is set up, and these real estate tech companies are set up to generate as many leads as humanly possible. And a lot of agents and teams like grade a tech company based off like how many leads and how cheap they can get them, and that's like their measuring stick.
Right.
And so my biggest aha has been like, um, that's the wrong measuring stick to be using because it creates a proverbial income ceiling.
Right.
And you have a lot of agents complain about like making the calls and they can't get agents to make calls and all these things. And the truth is, it's like, it's not that agents don't want to make calls. It's that and I know this from firsthand experience, it's demoralizing to make 100 or 200, 300 calls and hardly very few people pick up or very few people are actually motivated. And then you have to follow up with those people for 3, 6, 12 months.
Yeah.
And so like it kills your motivation. And so the key shift I mentioned earlier is really focusing on high intent leads. Like just go after those. Like, go after the folks that are experiencing a major life event and have to sell, for example. Because you can go get those. And what's kind of crazy is they're like I mean, pennies compared to like Zillow or, Google or some of these other things. Um, and they'll convert really fast.
Awesome. Well, heck yeah. And you're not paying a premium fee for them. uh,
I shouldn't probably leave anybody on a cliffhanger. What I'm referencing is the high intent leads are, for example, people that are again going through major life events, and those life events are divorce, financial distress, health distress, usually because you're elderly, you can't maintain the property anymore. But what's fascinating about those three things, like financial distress, health distress, you inherited a home or you're going through divorce, is every single one of those leads is available online and they're free. Like divorce records are public information. Probate records are public information. When somebody gets scheduled to be foreclosed on, a lot of people don't know this, but from my experience, most of the foreclosures that get published never actually get foreclosed on. They end up being sold on the retail market, but not for like 3, 4 months. So what happens is they get the notice of foreclosure, right? And then they make a deal with the bank to get an extension. And then they finally hire an agent to do. So all of these lead sources are, you know, it's all public information. You can literally go down to the courthouse and pull all these records. I mean, that's literally what I did like 15 years ago. I was literally going to the courthouse and I was pulling all these records. And I was using at the time, I was using Yellow Pages .com to pull in phone numbers. I know that sounds so archaic, it's so crazy. But now there's companies out there that can do this for you. And like
yeah.
the one I'd recommend is called about to sell.com. They'll
About
literally like
this.
they'll build a scraper to go to your county courthouse and like scrape all the leads, and then they enrich the lead records with contact data, for example, for the executor of the estate or the people going through divorce or whoever's being foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And then you just, once you have that information, the goal is, to market to them. And the thing I did was, back then was I did phone calls and I sent out direct mail. And what's interesting is like, um, today it's a lot harder to just like cold call someone because the contact rates are so low and people's phones are popping up as spam. But
Right.
most of my like fastest converting, highest quality leads actually came from direct mail. And that holds
Oh,
true even to today. Is we use yellowletters.com, and we'll send out a letter, one of the handwritten letters through yellowletters.com to any of these lead sources. And we get, between a 1 and 3% response rate. So like we sent
wow.
out 10,000 pieces, and I generated 120 seller leads.
Wow.
And out of those 120 seller leads, about 1 in 10 end up converting into a listing.
So we're talking 10,000. That's in a month.
Yep.
Okay. So could you talk just a little bit about that? Because some of the viewers are going to be questioning hey, I went and I sent out postcards for my listing and I sent out 500. Why I never got any response from direct mail. What can you talk about maybe volume when it comes to making this work?
So I want to preface this to make sure everybody understands this. I have personally spent over $60 million on lead generation. Personally, I have literally written the checks over the past 15 years for over $60 million. So I do radio, TV, billboards, digital, retargeting ads, direct mail. Like, we do it all. And obviously, the big bulk of our budget goes to some of the most expensive things, like, for example, radio, TV, billboards, OTT. OTT is over the top. OTT stands for over the top. It's like your streaming services.
Mhm.
And so my point of saying that is, the reason why people might question direct mail is because either one, the actual copy of the direct mail piece may not be effective. It's not a direct response heavy piece of copy. The second thing is, if you're not going to use direct response copy, and if you're not familiar with that term, you can go look it up on ChatGPT or you can go buy a book. Dan Kennedy is a very popular copywriter.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to use direct response heavy copy, then what you're basically doing is you're trying to build a brand. And building a brand in a neighborhood with direct mail takes between 2 and 3 years. There's a course out there that was created by a guy named Kenny Kloss out of Phoenix, Arizona.
Hmm.
Created this course on farming. It's a great course, and Kenny was a former UPS driver, and he started farming the zip code and started having a tremendous amount of success, and then added another zip code, and his team sells hundreds of homes now, and it's his primary source of lead generation. But the key thing is, and he talks about this in his course, is like, if you're going to play the brand game, it takes 2 to 3 years. Like year one, you should just consider trying to break even. So you've got to be in it for the long haul. Again, if you don't want to play the brand play, then you need to be really direct response heavy. And what I mean by that is like a call to action, like, I'll guarantee an offer on your house, or I've got a cash buyer, some kind of strong CTA like that. So that's one of the key elements of direct mail is the messaging. And then the second is to make sure you have the right lists, like make sure you get the right data, you're getting the right list to send the letters to.
Right.
Um, and then the third thing is pretty simple, like put a trackable phone number on there where you can track the leads. We use callrail.com. It's a vanity phone number that goes on there, and we can track how many leads come in for that campaign. But I mean, those are kind of the domino pieces. I'd say like a little asterisk I'll put on there is, I don't know if we have anybody that's listening to this that's a fan of statistics, um, or maybe you've read the book Outliers, or maybe just kind of generally understand the concept. Like, or shit, maybe if anybody's on this podcast listening and they've been to Vegas, Las Vegas, and they sit down at a blackjack table, and the dealer gets blackjack like 6 times in a row. So, in statistics, they would call that an outlier, right? It's not the average, but you have to sit at the blackjack table long enough to like really get a sense of what the average is. And so when you only send out 500 pieces of mail, there's a high probability that that actual campaign itself may be an outlier. And that is assuming you've got good copy. You've got good direct response heavy sales copywriting.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Stellar content. I love the people that you brought in, especially Dan Kennedy. Like that I love listening and watching some of his stuff there. Quick break. If you're a high producing real estate agent who's already figured out the money part but keeps losing ground on your time and your health, that's exactly who the Freedom Agent was built for. We're a coaching and VA connection platform specifically for agents who are ready to run the same business in half the hours. Whether that means building the right virtual team, the right systems, or just finally getting somebody in your corner who's done it, we've got you. Check us out at freedomagent.net. All right, back to it. All right, kind of moving on just a little bit more, Chris. So you've come from the solopreneur, you've built the team, and now you're up at this and you're cranking, right? I want to ask you, where you're at now, what part of this business at your level wears on you the most?
Um, I would say and that's a great question. I would say I'm at a place now where everything is about the quality of the leaders within the organization. And so I would say the part that wears on me the most is pouring into the leaders of the organization and then finding out they're not the right person.
Okay.
And that, what's interesting is like that holds true, I think, at any phase of building a business.
Yeah.
Like it just sucks when you recruit people, you pour yourself into them, and it's not a fit. So I would say that's probably the thing that probably wears on me the most.
Right. So it's I think a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself, when we start to hire leverage, people leverage things inside of that we tend to care more than they do about their own success. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great quality of any leader is you care more about the people, their success and they care for themselves. It's interesting you bring that up. I think that's something I had to overcome earlier in my journey
Yeah.
is that I wanted people to succeed at such a high level, but like they were really content succeeding here, but yet I'm trying to push them up to here.
Hmm.
And so, the epiphany is, and this is just, I feel like this is like a constant reminder I have in all areas of my life is like, you can push people as hard as you want, but they've they've got to want it too.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's a hard pill to swallow when you really want someone to succeed.
So, how have you been managing that, we'll call it struggle mentally or within the business? What have you been doing to um, manage it or overcome it altogether?
Well, I don't think I've figured out how to overcome it. uh
That's fair.
Man, if I could solve that, man, I might be a trillionaire like Elon Musk because I think every company has churn issues.
Right.
Uh, yeah. So your question was about overcoming it, and I don't have a good answer.
Okay. Well, that's no problem. That's no
Uh,
problem. Like,
yeah, if you know what, I'll share with you something we did on the agent side when we recruited
sure.
agents. That was basically like the game changer for us. One,
Yeah.
I read this book called The Rare Find.
Mhm.
And that was a huge, like, mental shift for me, was, like, reading that book, and I put in place a lot of things similar to what they talked about in that book, but for real estate. So that helped me a lot from a recruiting and selection perspective, making sure I had the right people on the bus.
Right. Yeah.
Um, depending on who's listening to this podcast, right? Like, I'm always looking for leaders to help other people succeed at this point.
Yeah.
So I wanna try to speak to people on the podcast that are trying to build a team or start building a team. So when I like close my eyes and think back to when I was in that exact position, the game changer for me was kind of back to like the statistical thing, which is like I asked myself, how do I put the odds in my favor of winning? Because if I trained one agent in a month or two agents in a month, like, and you poured your heart and soul into them, and then like they don't work out, it sucks.
Yeah.
And so, kind of what I discovered through a lot of pain and suffering is when you recruit agents and your value prop is to give them really high quality opportunities and train and pour yourself into them and help them be really productive. Um, and by the way, I would call that you're kind of like focused on the you're like in the agent productivity business versus like the agent volume business.
Right.
So what I, again, through a lot of pain and suffering, what I realized is that about only 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people that I brought on would actually would be up to hit would exceed the standard that I had in place.
Mhm.
And they talk about this in the book The Rare Find. There's a nonprofit organization they talk about in the book called Teach for America. And Teach for America is a nonprofit. The teachers don't make a lot of money, but you can go on YouTube and like read all about teachers talking about how to prepare for Teach for America. And if you get through the Teach for America program like it's like graduating from Harvard or something in the teaching world.
Wow.
Teach for America was ranked by Forbes as the fourth hardest organization to get a job at. And so what they put in place in the company is very similar to like what they do with like the Navy SEALs. They'll bring in, call it 20 teachers, and everything they do through the onboarding process. And by the way, it's not really onboarding, it's more like they're creating these, you know, barriers to entry to join the organization by getting the teachers to actually do things that they'll be doing in real life. Like they do mock classrooms, they have kids in the class that try to distract the teacher. And what the organization is looking at is like, how resilient is that person when they see them in action?
Yeah.
Same thing they do in like special forces and all these other things.
Nice.
Um, so, anyways, when you put these really high barriers to entry into your own company in place, the probability of you finding somebody that's going to succeed is low. What I found is it's between 25 and 30%. of the people that I bring in will actually make it past the first 90 days with all of the barriers to entry we put in place to be really like an official member of the team. And so if you're going to pour yourself heart and soul into somebody all week, every week, and you only do one person, the odds of that person working out are very low. And so what we found is we needed to get about 7 people to sign a letter of intent saying they were interested in coming on board. We'd end up having 5 or 6 of them actually show up. One person always had something happen. And then for every, for every 5 people, about 1 to 2 of them worked out. So like, for example, like over the course of 2 months, we'd bring in, 10 people and, 2 to 3 of them would end up working out. And so when we hit those minimum thresholds, the energy we exerted felt like it was worthwhile because we ended up having an agent that would consistently go on to sell 60 to 100 homes per year.
Wow.
And so like, for anybody listening to the show, they're going to hear that number and they're going to think that's crazy. Like we've been doing this for 15 years. I don't have a single agent that sells less than 60 homes a year. I have a mom with 5 kids that sold 115 homes every year like clockwork. And so, I mean, obviously we have systems in place to make that happen. Like we book the appointments for them. They have a full-time admin, courier, photographer, stager, someone hitting MLS for them. Like there's a whole team of people around them to do that. But my point is like when you're trying to look for high achiever people, the odds are against you to finding the right person. So to put the odds in your favor to make it worthwhile for all that effort and energy, um, get a minimum of 5 to 7 people in a room to show up for training. And you'll end up with at least one that's going to end up being a badass, assuming you've got a good roadmap in place to get them to be successful.
It's awesome, man. Solid. I love that. All right. So just 2 more questions and I'll get you off the hook here. All right. So we've talked a lot about helping out these agents. If you could give one piece of advice to an agent doing maybe around 1 to 3 million in volume who's just trying to grow, what would that be? Just that one piece of advice.
my, I got interviewed by those kids from School of Hard Knocks,
Yeah.
and it was really cool. It got like millions and millions and millions of views. And they asked me the same question.
Okay.
Like, what information would you share with the world that would be like the biggest game changer to anybody's life to accelerate success and all these things? And the thing that has been the biggest unlock for me through my whole life, well, for the last 15, 16, well, shoot, even when you're a kid, I think even when you're a kid and you're in sports and stuff,
Yeah.
the biggest unlock is hiring a coach that's been there and done it, that already has the playbook and can tell you exactly what to do. And that will just, decrease the learning curve exponentially for you. And I think a lot of people need to remember the real estate industry has been around a long time. NAR was formed in 1908. Been a lot of people in this industry that have found a way to succeed. And I'm not a coach, but there are a lot of amazing coaches out there that can help people, and give them a roadmap. So I'd say coaching is one of the biggest unlocks. The second thing I would say in the vein of coaching is, and this is just one of the challenges I see, is a lot of people will go get a coach and like they themselves don't actually know what their own problem is and they'll communicate the wrong thing to the coach. Like they're talking about like their problems, like for example, like I don't know what to put on this letter to send direct mail. Like I don't know how to do this website. It's like, they'll start talking about tactical things that aren't going to create exponential growth. And so the thing that I learned through my first coach that I ever had was the biggest area of growth is going to be your ability to convert a complete stranger into a client. The agents that focus on just their sphere of influence, it's a very, very slow growth curve. So if you're going to accelerate how big you build your database, how many past clients you have, like if you want to make a lot of money within a short period of time, you got to learn how to convert complete strangers into clients. And that's a
Do the
different
hard
game, huh?
You got to do the hard things, right?
It's man, if you can build the bridge to convert strangers to clients, you're going to get rich. One of the things that is really exciting about AI that we've been doing is we let me back up. When I had the team, what we used to do to help people learn faster, to convert strangers faster,
Uh-huh.
we would physically go on appointments with them. And we did it all the time, every month. It was a huge time suck. Oh my God, it took forever. It was the biggest pain in the ass ever. And every morning, I would also listen to the calls, the outbound calls they'd make to the leads. And so when you think about converting strangers, the actual like conversion of a stranger into a client, there's two key pivotal places where either conversion dies or thrives. It's on the phone or it's face to face. It's like, are you saying the right things on the on the phone to book the appointment? And then at the appointment, are you saying the right things that are in their business? And the only, it's like a lot of coaches don't have that information. Like they're not physically able to go on the appointment. They're not, it's like they don't have enough time in the day to go listen to all the phone calls you make.
Yeah.
They can give you little snippets, but like they can't like do it consistently. And like the truth is, if you're gonna, get good and you want to be good for a long time, like you need to be getting feedback almost daily. So there's a tool out there through a company called RealSync, and the actual AI tool is called Table OS,
Mhm.
and it's a mobile app for an agent's phone. It ties into your CRM, and number one, it digests all the calls you make through the CRM, and then it gives you insights what you did good and what you did bad, and it's looking at hundreds and thousands of appointments that have already been booked. And so it sees patterns. That's what AI is good at, is like seeing patterns. Like, why did all these other calls result in an appointment and this one did? So it gives you the insights as to why when you called these leads, you didn't get the appointment book. And then there's a record feature on the app when you walk into somebody's house to meet them about, for example, selling their home. You literally just hit record. You tell the seller, "Hey, I have an AI note taker," and same deal. The app has seen thousands of appointments now, and it knows, like, it sees patterns around what's going to increase your probability of winning the appointment, and it gives you insights immediately after the appointment to tell you what you did good and what you did bad. And you're going to learn from those insights what the real core issue is, and then you can talk to your coach and be like, "Man, I need to practice overcoming this." So that, I would say, that's like, that's the like learning adaptation piece that I think is a big challenge for the coaching industry and real estate, because it's so time consuming listening to calls and going on appointments.
Wow, Chris. No, that sounds awesome. That's a game changer right there for trainers, for coaches, for team leads. So that's awesome. All right, Chris. Just thank you so much for being here on the call. I want to, of course, give you the last word if there's anything else that you want to go over, but definitely let me know where people can find you if they're interested in chatting with you or anything like that.
Yeah. Just hit me up on Instagram. You can send me a
Okay.
DM on Instagram. Just, I think it's /Christopher Waters.
Well, perfect, man. Well, I appreciate you being on here. And everybody, thank you so much for coming to the Freedom Agent podcast. And we'll see you in our next episode.
We appreciate you being here for this episode of the Freedom Agent Podcast. If you're serious about scaling your business without working nonstop, check out the free resources, the webinar, and the Freedom Agent book below. We'll see you in our next episode.